Not a holdout, not a leaked story, not some agent planting rumors through a beat reporter at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. This is a quarterback who sat for 3 years, earned his starting job, took Green Bay to the playoffs in his first full season, and then watched his own front office take its sweet time deciding what he was worth. And instead of waiting, instead of letting the process play out the way the Packers organization always wants things to play out, quietly, on their schedule, in their own time, Jordan Love made it.
He found the executive. He sat across from him and asked the question that months of agent phone calls hadn't answered. The room got uncomfortable fast. Here is everything that happened, how it started, what was said, how it landed, and what it tells you about the quarterback who is supposed to carry this franchise for the next decade.
Here is the foundation that makes this entire situation make sense. Green Bay drafted Jordan Love with the 26th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, first round, out of Utah State. They didn't draft him to sit. Nobody takes a quarterback in the first round to watch him hold a clipboard for 3 seasons. But that's what happened, because Aaron Rodgers wasn't done, and the Packers weren't going to push him out. So Love waited. He practiced. He prepared. He said the right things in every press conference, kept his head down, and let Rodgers do what Rodgers was gonna do.
For 3 years. When Rodgers finally went to New York in March 2023, Love got his chance. What he did with it wasn't a surprise to anyone inside that building, but it was a statement to everyone outside it. 11 wins, 6 losses, a road playoff win in Dallas, a stadium full of Cowboys fans, and a 26-year-old quarterback who didn't flinch. He finished that year with 4,159 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, passer rating of 96.1. That's a guy who earned a second contract. That was never the debate. The debate was when, and what the number was going to look like. And that debate went on a lot longer than Love was willing to accept.
Here is the contract landscape that turned frustration into something more serious. The 2024 offseason was one of the most expensive quarterback markets in NFL history. Dak Prescott signed a 4-year extension, $240 million total, $60 million per year, $231 million guaranteed at signing. That was the new ceiling. Then you had Tua Tagovailoa get his deal. Joe Burrow got his. Justin Herbert got his. Lamar Jackson's fully guaranteed contract from the previous year was still sitting there as the reference point for every agent in the league. Every one of those signings moved the floor for Jordan Love's negotiation. His camp was watching all of it. They had the numbers. They knew what the market said Love should command. They also knew that the Packers, historically, don't love being told by the market what they should do. Green Bay operates a specific way, methodical, patient. They believe in their own process and their own evaluation. That's gotten them good results over a long period of time. It's also, in this specific situation, driven a wedge between the organization and the one person whose job satisfaction mattered most. Months went by. Conversations happened between agents and front office staff. Nothing moved. The answers coming back were always some version of the same thing. We're working on it, we value Jordan, the timeline is going to work itself out. Love heard that enough times that he stopped believing it would work itself out on its own.
Here is the moment Love chose to handle this differently than most quarterbacks would. At some point in the summer of 2024, Love decided the back channel approach wasn't working. Not because his representation was doing anything wrong, because the person on the other side of those conversations had no real urgency. When a front office can run the clock through another offseason without committing to a number, they will. That's not unique to Green Bay. That's just how organizations operate when they hold the leverage. Love looked at that dynamic and decided to change it. He requested a direct meeting with a senior front office executive, not a negotiation session with lawyers and agents and term sheets spread across a conference table. A conversation. Quarterback
to executive. No buffer. That's not how these things usually happen. The layers exist for a reason. They protect both.
Here is the confrontation that made this story different from every other quarterback contract dispute you've heard about. Love came into the meeting with one question, essentially. He wanted to know if the Packers were committed to him, actually committed, in the form of a contract that matched what he had earned and what the market had set. Or if the conversations were going to keep producing nothing for another 6 months. He said what he needed to say. He didn't threaten to demand a trade. He didn't talk about other teams being interested.
He just put the question on the table and waited for an honest answer. The executive was caught flat-footed. That's the only way to describe it. You don't often have a franchise quarterback sitting across from you without an agent in the room, asking you directly whether the organization sees him the way he needs to be seen. The usual deflections, process language, timeline language, we're working through it language, didn't land the same way when Love was sitting right there. What came back was honest, at least. The executive told Love the Packers valued him, told him the extension was always the plan, and then said something that reportedly hit harder than anything else in the conversation. The Packers weren't going to let outside market pressure dictate their internal timeline. That answer was very Green Bay. Anyone who has watched this organization operate for any length of time will recognize it immediately. For Love, it wasn't good enough. He said so. He didn't explode. He just made clear that patience had a limit, that he had already shown more of it than most players would have, and that he needed the organization to treat this with the urgency it deserved. The meeting ended without a deal, but the energy in that building shifted.
Here is the detail that rarely makes it into contract coverage, but matters more than most people realize. Word got around. NFL buildings are not airtight. People talk. Not to reporters, not to anyone outside the organization, but to each other. Offensive linemen, receivers, the guys who practice next to Love every day, they found out their quarterback had walked into the front office and handled his business himself. The reaction was not what the organization might have hoped for. Nobody in that locker room thought Love had overstepped. If anything, it landed the opposite way. These are professional football players. They understand leverage, they understand respect, and they understand what it means when a guy at the top of the depth chart goes to bat for himself, without making it everybody else's problem. Receivers didn't stop running routes in protest. Linemen didn't suddenly check out. The football operation kept running the way it always does. But there was a private acknowledgement among the people who play on that side of the building that their quarterback had shown something. Matt LaFleur stayed publicly neutral, which is the correct professional move. Coaches don't insert themselves into contract disputes. But people close to the coaching staff described an environment where LaFleur understood what was at stake. A quarterback who feels disrespected is a distracted quarterback, and a distracted quarterback is a problem for the people who draw up the game plans. The coaches wanted this resolved. They just weren't the ones with the authority to resolve it. Here is how the contract eventually got done, and why the way it got done matters as much as the number itself. Green Bay signed Jordan Love to a 4-year extension worth $220 million, $150 million guaranteed, per year average that put him in the top tier of NFL quarterbacks at the time of signing. By every external measure, Love got paid. But the deal didn't happen because the Packers woke up one morning and decided the timeline was right. It happened because Love forced the question in a room where it couldn't be deferred to another phone call or another round of agent negotiations. He accelerated a process that the organization was comfortable running slowly. That's the thing nobody will say out loud in an official capacity. No press release mentions the direct conversation. No GM talks about it in a press conference. The public version of this story is that two sides worked together, found common ground, and got a deal done. That version is technically accurate. It just leaves out the part where the quarterback had to go ask for it himself. The Packers got their franchise quarterback locked up through his prime years. Love got a contract that reflects what he's worth. Everyone wins. That's the outcome. The process, though, revealed something.
This organization, which prides itself on structure and patience and doing things the right way, needed a push from their own starting quarterback, face to face.
Here is every fact in this story, in order, with nothing left out. Jordan Love was the 26th pick in the 2020 draft. He sat behind Rodgers for 3 years without incident. He took over in 2023, went 11-6, threw for 4,159 yards and 32 touchdowns, and won a road playoff game. The quarterback market reset around him throughout 2024.
Jordan Love sat for 3 years when most first-round quarterbacks would have demanded clarity. He played his first full season and took Green Bay to the playoffs. He watched the market reset around him and waited for the organization to respond. When they didn't move fast enough, he didn't leak anything, didn't threaten anything publicly, and didn't use his platform to create pressure. He walked into the building and sat across from a front office exec and asked for what he earned. The Packers eventually answered with 4 years and $220 million. That's the number. But the number only exists because Love forced the moment that produced it. That's not a problem. That's a franchise quarterback. Prescott at $60 million per year. Lamar fully guaranteed. Burrow, Herbert, Tua all signed. Green Bay moved slowly. Months of agent conversations produced nothing concrete. Love decided the back-channel approach wasn't working. He walked into the building and requested a direct meeting with a senior front office executive, bypassing the usual negotiating structure. The executive was caught off guard. Love asked directly whether the organization was committed to him in contract form, not in principle. The executive said yes in principle, then told Love the Packers wouldn't be rushed by the external market. Love said that answer wasn't acceptable, and said so to the executive's face. The meeting ended without a deal. The locker room found out. Respect for Love inside the building increased. LaFleur said nothing publicly. The front office, now aware that the patience they had been banking on was genuinely exhausted, moved. 4 years, $220 million, $150 million guaranteed. None of that happened